All right, we're back, and we're going to have just a short conversation about the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, and specifically the self incrimination clause of the Fifth Amendment. So, for those who don't know, the Fifth Amendment says that no person shall be forced to testify against themselves, right? And obviously, there's a lot of different applications of this throughout the law. Nobody can be forced to testify at their own criminal trial if they don't want to. You're allowed to plead the fifth if you are up on the stand and you're asked a question in which you would have to answer, and that answer would incriminate you. Now, importantly, this Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination only applies to testimony, i.e., spoken or written words, right? This does not apply to any physical anything. So, in other words, police can force you to participate in a lineup. And because that does not involve testimony, you cannot plead self-incrimination for having to show up to a lineup. Police can force you to give your fingerprints. And because that's physical, and non-testimonial, you can't plead the Fifth Amendment. Same thing with like a blood sample, right? If police have a warrant to acquire a blood sample from you, you can't say, oh, that would be incriminating, because again, a blood sample is not testimony. Now, how does this apply to digital evidence? Well, passwords, right? So my cell phone, and I hope all your cell phones as well, have a password that is required before that cell phone will unlock. My desktop computer, when I turn it on, I have to enter a password because, the computer won't turn itself on unless that password is entered. Can the police force me to give them that password? This is a very complicated legal issue. Okay? Now, one thing that is clear is if your password is physical, they can force you to do it because that's non-testimonial. In other words, many phones now have like a facial recognition feature where you can have it unlock the phone anytime it sees your face. Police can, once they've seized your cell phone, if they have a right to search it, if they either have a warrant or some other exception to the warrant requirement, but you're refusing to unlock it for them, they are free to just take your cell phone and hold it up to your face to unlock it. Same thing with a fingerprint. If your cell phone is unlocked by a fingerprint, that is definitely not testimonial. And again, if they have the legal right to search that phone, they can force you to give your fingerprint or your face or whatever. What's not quite as clear is passwords that are, a PIN code or a pattern swipe or something right? That is on much murkier legal footing. And there's a few different aspects that come into play. So the Supreme Court, as of time of this recording, has not ruled on this issue. So there is no one rule for the United States as a whole. There are some courts of appeals that have ruled on this. So in some states, you can be forced to give your password to police in order to unlock a phone. But in some cases, you can be forced just to give up your PIN code or your password. In other cases, you're not forced to give up your PIN code or your passcode, but you can be forced to input that PIN code or password and then give the police an unlocked copy of your device. Whether it's a cell phone or a laptop or whatever, right? So in that case, they're getting around this by saying you're not testifying. You're not giving the police your password. You're still keeping that secret, but they can force you to use that password that you are still keeping secret to unlock that device and allow them to view the contents of that cell phone or computer or whatever. In other states, based on court rulings in those areas, police cannot force you to unlock a device like that. If they can't get into it by themselves, doesn't matter how many warrants they have, they can't investigate it. And obviously this has both Fifth Amendment self-incrimination implications and Fourth Amendment search and seizure implications. So this is kind of a situation in which both amendments, both rights that we have as Americans, come into play. Now, another instance or another situation that arises in a similar vein is about third parties. Okay. So back many years ago, there was a mass shooting out in San Bernardino, California. And the person who committed this mass shooting was eventually killed as part of that incident. But police were suspicious that he was working with others. And so they wanted to access his cell phone to see if he had communicated with anybody else about this attack, about planning it or executing it or whatever. But his phone was locked and the police couldn't get into it. So they obtained a court order forcing the Apple company who made the cell phone to help them kind of break past the encryption, and so police could access the contents of this cell phone that they had a warrant to access. Apple said, no, we don't want to do that. This is a bad idea for numerous reasons. We don't want to help you. This was in the process of being litigated, and it was almost definitely going to end up at the Supreme Court. But then all of a sudden, law enforcement found another company that had the technical knowledge to break into that cell phone, and thus they didn't need Apple's help anymore. So they dropped the case. So if this kind of thing happens again, it is still unclear legally whether law enforcement can force a company like Apple or Samsung or Google or whoever to kind of, can a court order force those companies to create new software or new hacks to break through their own encryption, their own security systems? That's still kind of legally up in the air. Now, all of this said, this entire Fourth and Fifth Amendment issue only applies, all the things I've said about it only applies in the United States. In most countries, including the UK, Australia, Malaysia, India, most other countries like that, police can indeed force you to give up a password. If they have the legal right to search that device, their court systems, their legal systems have said that they are allowed to force you to give up your password, to unlock your device, etc., etc. So, in the United States, it's whether police can force you to give up a password is a very large. It depends. But in most other countries, the answer is yes, police can force you to give up your passwords. All right, that was a very short section, but we're going to go ahead and take another break, and we'll be right back. Thank you.